Hello there, many thanks for staying with us and glad you can join us again for another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, social and traditional media has been awash with news of protesters and agitations over injustices meted out to citizens of the world, from the protests in the United States over the murder of George Floyd, which also took place in Lagos, Nigeria. We have also had other protests here in Nigeria over the rape and murder of young girls around the country. Now, this edition of the program, we will look at the success of previous campaigns, what is being done beyond the protests and the hashtags, and what can be done to avert future occurrences. But before we do all of that, let's see what made the trends in the past week.
Worried by comments attributed to the leader of Miyetti Allah that the group is set to flag off its security outfit nationwide, Nigerians wondered why security operatives are yet to invite him for questioning and clarification of what the said outfit would be. Some went further to question the president's claim that IPOB was out to embarrass the country globally. Protesters continued their processions against racism and police brutality, which started as a result of the death of George Floyd, an American unarmed black man pinned to the ground with a white officer's knee to his neck for almost 9 minutes. Washington, D.C. witnessed its largest crowd just as the protest continued in Los Angeles, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Thank you for watching those trends. Now we also have, you can be a part of the program from wherever you're watching around the world. Just use the hashtags as well as the social media addresses showing on your screen at Channels TV, at Channels Beam, at Victor_MBIDI, then the hashtag Channels Beam, as well as State of Emergency GBV. Well, let's go on and meet our guest. Today we have with us in the Lagos studio Abraham Jigu. He is a lawyer and a politician who was a partner with MeScribe Legal Practitioners based in Lagos, but have been over the years a very vocal voice in the campaign for respect for human rights and upholding the respect for the rule of law. It's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Of course, you're welcome. We also have joining us from our Abuja studio, Chioma Agwegbo. She is the founder of Tech Her NG, a community that demystifies technology for women and deploys technology towards solving social problems, especially as they concern women. We also have in the Abuja studio, Olabukunola Williams. She is the executive director of Education as a Vaccine, an organization that works with young people to advance their rights to health and protection from all forms of violence. It's a pleasure to have you both on the program today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Indeed. So kickstart the conversation for us, Chioma. I mean, it's been, there's just been so much going on in the past week. Protests, all over the place over the rape and the murder of young girls, in Nigeria. But so there's been a campaign, especially by, the collaboration of groups that you both are part of. What exactly are you protesting for, apart from the fact that you want the rape and the murder of young girls and even the older ones? We've seen also that on social media. What else are you protesting for? What are you hoping to achieve with the protests?
Thank you very much, Victor. And thank you for having the hashtag on your screen. I think it's a really, really great way to show solidarity for this movement that concerns all of us. So what are we asking for? We're asking for 5 things. 1, we want all the states in the country that have not yet domesticated the Violence Against Persons Prohibition and the Child's Rights Act to do so without delay. The VAP Act is one of the strongest pieces of legislation as far as the protection and promotion of women in this country, women and girls in this country is concerned. We're also asking that there be public disciplinary measures for police and state prosecutors that mishandle sexual and gender-based violence cases in the country. We're asking for a number of other things, including, prosecuting sexual and gender-based violence as a criminal offense against the state, which means that, families are unable to withdraw cases even when they are pressured to do so by offenders or when they're pressured to do so, by members of security forces. We're also asking, we have 5 main asks. The bottom line for these asks is we want this state of emergency declared because we need sexual assault referral centers in the country. A sexual assault referral center provides free legal, medical, and psychological support for victims of sexual and gender-based violence. There are only 18 at this time, 4 of them in Lagos, 4 of them in Kaduna, and one of the most recent ones is the Nana Khadija Center in Sokoto. This is not enough. This is a country of 180 million people. These centers are stretched. And beyond having these centers, we need state governments to take responsibility for these centers. We can't have these centers being funded or supported by international development. States must, fulfill their mandate of protecting their citizens and install these centers, but also put behind them sustainably funded, lines that ensure that these centers function without interruption. These are some of the things that we're asking for.
All right, Olabukola, let me just quickly switch to you. So she pretty much just talked about some of the asks that you were making, with all of the protests that has been going on. But you guys visited the National Assembly. You also went to the police headquarters, and pretty much you got those you went to see to make some commitments. But if you look at the past, there's been all of these hashtags and also protests, but it seems to just fizzle out along the line. What is going to be done differently this time around to ensure that it doesn't end at those commitments, at those hashtags on Twitter, and also those protests on the streets of Abuja, Lagos, and other cities across the country?
Sure, thank you. I think it's really important to note that this has been a movement, and as we can see around the world, there's always a tipping point, something that really happens, because it's not today we've been asking for those 5 things. It's not today that civil society organizations have been pushing for a state of emergency. We've been having this conversation for so long, but I think what happened, unfortunately, with Uwa's death, may she rest in peace, and Baccarat and Tina, was it was just that moment where we all were like, we're tired. Yeah. We're tired of seeing this happen. We're tired of pushing and begging and cajoling, and nothing is happening. So we're seeing a much bigger movement than we've seen in a long time. We're seeing an intergenerational movement. We're seeing men and women. We're even seeing some people who are police officers, lawyers, all of them who've been talking about this really come up and say, we do need to do something. And for the first time in a long time, we are seeing motions from the House.
Yes.
On this, since the last time when they passed the VAT bill, we haven't seen anything like that since 2015. And for us, this protest was not just about going into the streets. It was not about a hashtag. It's an entire campaign that is not going to stop today or tomorrow, because we know how these things go. So for us, a big part of that campaign was also telling the people, email your legislator, call them, so that they know that this time is different, and we will not shut up until we actually see these changes. So we're really grateful for the motions, for the resolutions, for the promises. We just saw that the police released some guidelines today. It's really good to see, but we're ready for implementation. We want to actually see it happen. So that's the next step, is like, we're going to keep calling, and we want to see them put their money where their mouth is. So we want to see it budgeted. We want to see it funded. We're also seeing letters from the first ladies as well, who are saying, we support this, we're going to push for it in our state. So we have so many things that has happened just in like a week, but that's been building on years of work that started even before we became advocates, I believe. So for me, I really think this is a shift for us, and we're going to hold them accountable to it. Trust us, 6 months from now, we're still going to be making sure the state of emergency is actually being implemented, and there's a change in the life of women and girls in Nigeria.
I can't wait to see that, but let me just hold on and bring in Abraham into the conversation. Abraham, let's look at the legal perspective, of or the legal framework of rape, and all of that in Nigeria. What does it look like?
The legal framework in Nigeria for rape is looking fantastic right now. And I'll say that because of the piece of legislation they call Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Yeah. Now, before then, hitherto, we had the provisions in the Criminal Code Act, the Penal Code Act, and the Child Rights Act. These various legislations are provided for offenses against rape. Now, you might say a bit of still because the Criminal Code Act talks about unlawful carnal knowledge of a person or a woman, a girl. So also the Penal Code and the Child Rights specifically says that violence against a child is rape, or sex
With a child.
with the child is rape. Now, but the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act took it a notch up.
Higher.
Yeah. Now, the sad part of that act is that it's only been domesticated in the FCT, Ogun, Edo, Anambra states. Every other state have not domesticated this VAP Act, and it's sad because the act goes a long way to even cover, because right now we sympathize with our female folks. They are being the butt of these offenses in Nigeria. But the VAP covers also male rape.
Child.
Male rape.
Yeah.
Because the VAP talks about offenses when you penetrate the anus, the vagina, or the mouth of a person, not just a woman, either with an object, with your hand, with any part of your body. So it goes
Beyond.
It enlarges the scope of rape.
All right, so let me quickly bring back Chioma into this conversation. Chioma, so as part of the things that you were doing, your actions that you were taking, to ensure that we get justice, all round. So one of the things you talked about was, which you also just mentioned again now, is the fact that you want people to call their legislators to send them emails and all of that. So, which you said, starting from the 4th of June, there'll be posters of these legislators. Did you get consent from them before sharing their information, so to speak, now? I mean, for people to call.
Public officials are public property, Victor. And, they should, as a matter of necessity or as a matter of principle, by virtue of the office that they hold, provide clean, clear, and immediate opportunities for their constituents to engage with them. And it's on the basis of that fact that their details, which are already in public domain if you look at the National Assembly website, were put on posters to allow people easy access to reach out to their legislators. Also to mention that people are not just reaching out to their legislators, they're also reaching out to their governors, they're also reaching out to their councilmen. We're also planning engagements with the Nigerian Governors Forum, and we're also working with the, we're putting together a memo to be delivered to the Ministry of Women Affairs for onward, transmission to the Federal Executive Council. And this is because this is not just a movement by advocates. Nobody is born with, with advocates in their name. Every citizen is an advocate, and as long as there continue to be problems in our society, every citizen should activate the office of the citizen, which is incidentally the highest office in the land, and do what they need to do to stop this scourge. And so we're really grateful that citizens are starting to pick up the phone, are sending emails. I mean, last week we saw 2 legislators say things like, women dressing indecently kind of, increases the occurrence of rape. And citizens called them out. They called them, they sent emails, they sent text messages. And, one of the legislators actually retracted publicly. This is the kind of activity that we not only want to see on social media, but we want to see in person. When the police officers asked us, what are you people out here for? We said our children are not safe. There is no reason on the face of the earth that a 2-year-old should have been on the list that we handed over to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. There is no reason that the case which we heard about just yesterday, a child under 10 was gang raped. There's no reason that these things should be happening, and especially with the impunity and the frequency of occurrence that they happen. So there's really a matter of emergency, and we're calling on our representatives, both at the federal and at the state levels. There's a reason why you're representing us. There's a reason why it's not all of us within the hallowed chambers. And so we're asking them, do something. We're really excited with some of the commitments that the Speaker of the House of Representatives made. One of them is to get on the phone this week with all the...
just hold on. Would come to the commitments that the Speaker made. In just a moment, we have to take a quick break, and we'll come back and take some of those in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have with us our panelists in Abuja as well as right here in the Lagos studio. But let's go back to our Abuja studio where Chioma Agwebo was trying to make a statement on the commitments that was made by the Speaker of the House of Representatives when they visited the National Assembly. Chioma, please, you were making a statement as to regards, what the Speaker said. Can you quickly just wrap that up?
Yes, so thank you very much, Victor. He had mentioned that he was going to get on a call with the 36 members, with the 36 speakers of the Houses of Assembly to ask about, the adoption or domestication of the Child's Right Act and of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. He also talked about engaging, his office or the House of Representatives office on COVID, the ad hoc committee that they set up, engaging with the Presidential Task Force to ensure that sexual and gender-based violence is designated as an essential service, because during the full-on lockdown, first responders were unable to move around to extricate women and children from really difficult circumstances because sexual and gender-based violence wasn't listed as an essential service. So he's also promised to do that. The third thing is that he said he was going to have the poster which we handed over to him, and this poster had about 100 cases, which is just a tip of the iceberg of cases that we have seen this year between January and June. The oldest person on that list to have been raped was 70. The youngest person was 2. Now, we presented that list to him in memoriam of our march, and he said it would be blown up and hung in a very conspicuous place in the House of Representatives so that it remains top of mind for all the legislators as they come through. We're going to be working with their office to ensure that these 3 things, for a start, are done this week, and then we'll continue, obviously with the Nigerian Governors Forum, with the Federal Executive Council through the Ministry of Women Affairs, but also with citizens who are who are holders of the highest office of the land, the office of the citizen.
So pretty much everybody needs to also be pretty much everybody needs to also be a part of the movements.
Exactly.
All right. Let me quickly also hear from Olubukola. So there is the call for some form of measure, like a punitive measure for those who are found guilty, which has been actually trending all over the social media. Castration is one of those. But is that part of the measures that you submitted, perhaps to be implemented, when these laws are being made?
No, it was not one of the measures that we submitted. It's not, one of those things where we were like, oh, castration. A lot of the things we were pushing for were things that already existed to a large extent that we just wanted to see implemented, or that we wanted to see expanded. So we weren't jumping for new things necessarily. We just actually want justice to be carried out. In the Violence Against Prohibition Act, if you domesticate it, there's already punitive measures within the Violence Against Prohibition Act, which are stronger than what's in the Criminal and the Penal Code. We were necessarily pushing for there to be services and access. And I think it's really, really important for people to understand that often when someone is raped or assaulted, especially violently, that often there's very few safe spaces for them to go to and get help. And often sometimes they may go to a doctor who's going to ask them to go get a police report before they're going to get access to services. They would go to the police station, and depending on who they meet there, the police station might ask them, did you enjoy it? Why are you making noise now? Was your slippers outside the door? Did you enter his house? All of these things. So we were just really focused on how do we ensure that the law is implemented in places where it doesn't exist, is domesticated and it's implemented. How do we ensure we can get political will behind this movement? Because citizens are already behind this movement. We just need those who represent us, who hold the money bags, and who have the authority to be able to do something, to actually do something. That's what we really were pushing for with this campaign, and that's really what we wanted to see. The issue of castration, I think they discussed it in the House as one of the motions, and they, according to the Speaker, when we went to the meeting, they discussed it twice and it got thrown out. But for me, the biggest thing that I would say in terms of that is that before we even get to castration, let's implement the laws that we have. And then all of us as citizens within our sphere of influence, in our churches, in our mosques, in our workplaces, in our schools, how are we ensuring those places are safe? So that castration is like the last thing. Let's try to prevent, and let's properly respond. If we can do those 2 things, then we'll be further ahead. That castration would not be the one thing that would be our hope.
All right. Let's hope that all of these, is pretty much, we see light at the end of the tunnel. But I'd have to say thank you to you, Olubukola, as well as Chioma. You both joined us from our Abuja studios. Thanks for joining us today on the program and sharing your thoughts on this very contentious issue. But let me just come back to you, Abraham, because they're saying what they're asking for is what is existing. So what is existing? What are the punishments existing in the law as it is right now? Quickly, please.
Thank you, Victor. Before we go into the punishments that are existing for rape in Nigeria in the laws, it is also important to state that, you see, what constitutes rape? People should know what constitutes rape. Because a lot of emotions will go into, we should punish prosecutors that don't follow up with cases of rape. Yeah. It becomes difficult when people are ignorant of what to do immediately a rape incident happens. It is important that we also tell people and advise them on what to do, because proving rape will become difficult when it goes to court. And though a judge is has the prerogative to determine what is corroboration when it comes to rape, the evidence you put before the court. When a rape happens, first and foremost, penetration has to be there, we know, for a rape to occur. Consent is important, an ingredient. We know that whether you're a male or female, once consent is not given for a body to be touched, it becomes sexual assault or sexual molestation or sexual battery, not a rape. There's a need for these things to be distinguished, because a lot of people go to town and say, oh, somebody does this in rape. You have to know what really constitutes rape. Now, coming back to what the offenses are, the punishments are, the Penal Code and the Criminal Code Act specifically and clearly state that the punishment for rape is life imprisonment. Now, the judge, a magistrate can, by discretion, give another sentence. But the punishment for it is life imprisonment. Though also the Violence Against Persons and Prohibition Act provides for 14 years for people under 14, 12 years.
Well, let's
fine for those
let's hope that those convictions are gotten, and those who are found culpable.
Convictions will be gotten once incidents like this are incidented and you know what to do, and these things are there for us to tell the people. Now, once an incident of rape happens,
I wish we could really go forward.
No, it is important that people know what to do.
Okay, quickly, just say that in 2 seconds.
Because you need to make sure you do 3 things. Get a lawyer, report to the police immediately, pursue, then get a doctor to examine the person. Now, there are also cases of you tongue close that can be, then witnesses.
All right, so these are things that people need to do. Need to pack together
and
present before a judge. All right, I have to say thank you, Abraham, for joining us. I mean, time is not really permissible at the moment, so we could have gone on and on with that. But I have to say thank you, legal practitioner Abraham, for joining us on the program. And that's the program today. You can find our most viewed videos on our YouTube channel, as well as our Instagram and Facebook pages. Thank you once again for joining us on the program. I'm Victor Matthias. Bye for now.